Hey everybody, week 3, video 4. Yay, we're almost finished. Next up is meninges and cerebrospinal fluid. There is a video about that called 2 Minutes Neuroscience, the meninges. The meninges are a kind of protective sac, and I'm calling it a sac, that protects the brain and spinal cord, and it cushions and protects them. So it wraps all the way around your brain and then all the way down. No, you can't see it. All the way down your spinal cord. Here's one of my nerdy things. Another thing is you can't have spinal meningitis. So, okay, meningitis is inflammation of the meninges, right? And people talk about having spinal meningitis. You can't just have spinal meningitis because the meninges go all the way around your brain. So it's not just in the spine. What you can have is either viral meningitis or bacterial meningitis. So there's my nerdy information, brain information for you for tonight, or maybe just in this video. Maybe there's other cool stuff in the other videos. So first of all, the first layer of the meninges is the dura mater, which is the toughest outside layer. It's pretty thick and it's nearest to the skull. The next layer is the arachnoid layer. And if you think of arachnophobia, fear of spiders, right? So the arachnoid layer is so called because it looks like a spider web. And then sort of within, you'll see in the video that they show the arachnoid layer, the spiderwebby part is more up and down than that way, it seems like. And within that area is the cerebrospinal fluid. So it's between the arachnoid layer and the pia mater, which is the thinnest layer closest to the brain. So we go dura mater, arachnoid layer, pia mater. Okay, and that is what forms the meninges. Cerebrospinal fluid is a clear fluid that fills that subarachnoid place, the canal of your spinal column, right? And the cerebral ventricles, which are inside your brain, and we'll get to later. When you hear about somebody having water, or a baby or a child having water on the brain, or hydrocephalus, that's what that is. It's too much cerebral spinal fluid. And so you might hear about shunts or see a child with a shunt because they need to drain. It goes down and it goes into their stomach and then out of their body in a normal way. There are 4 cerebral ventricles that are connected to each other and the subarachnoid space. So that's where all the CSF, the cerebral spinal fluid, is flowing through. It provides cushion and support to the brain. So just think about, your brain is kind of just floating in there, and it can take some of the back and forth that we do because it's kind of floating in the water and it's got some room to move. The next thing to talk about is the blood-brain barrier. This is mentioned in the video, and it's kind of neat to see. So it is closely arranged cells that create the walls of blood vessels that only allow certain chemicals in the brain. So, to really help your brain hopefully not get viruses, bacteria, and other bad things that aren't supposed to be there, and just limit it to the chemicals and neurotransmitters that are supposed to be there. It allows nutrients, glucose, oxygen, and sex hormones to pass through, and so that's how we kind of know how we feel about our gender, because that gets into our brain. It communicates with cells, and it secretes material within the blood-brain barrier. Of course, traumatic brain injuries, neurological disorders, and psychiatric disorders can result in a breakdown, and so that again could cause brain disease. And now we're getting to the lobes of the brain, or if you remember, the cerebrum, right? I went to a training, this wonderful woman, she's a speech pathologist, but she really understood neurology. She's fascinating. She's why I kind of try to do chunked videos, because she said our brain can pay attention for about 9 minutes at a time. And then after that, you kind of have to stop and regroup, give it a break. So that's what I'm trying to do. Mine are going about 10 minutes, but still I try. So she, though, had a great mnemonic for remembering the lobes of the brain, and that is Freud took off his pants. So frontal, temporal, occipital is back here, parietal. Frontal, temporal, occipital, parietal, Freud took off his pants. Okay, if it doesn't work for you, that's okay. You can think of other ones. You can submit them in your discussions about what would be a better mnemonic if you have one. I'd love to hear it. Okay, so there is constant communication between the lobes in the cerebrum. They are symmetrical halves, right? So we have the two hemispheres, and there is symmetry to I think most of the the parts inside. Sorry, like I said, I've told you my word retrieval is not so great lately. But there are distinct functions in the hemispheres in some cases. First, we have our occipital lobe back here. If you get hit here, lower, you'll hit your cerebellum, and your balance will be off. Around here, you're going to get to where your vision's going to be off. It is the most specialized lobe of the brain, where it's pretty much just kind of doing vision stuff for the most part. There is, as part of one of the other videos, they talk about how the eyes work. There is the optic chiasm, where the optic nerve crosses over to the opposite side of the brain. And I think that there is a video that has a visual of what that looks like. And so you have your two eyes, and so the information from the left side of each eye, goes to the right side of your brain, and then the stuff from your right eyes, the right sides of both of your eyes, do it this way, right, goes to the left side of your brain, to the occipital lobe in the back, and that's how things get processed. Yeah, so I said that. Okay, the next one is the parietal lobe. It is primarily responsible for processing somatosensory information, such as speech, pain, and spatial orientation. It processes, so together with the somatic sensations, it processes that and also integrates sensory information for movement control. So things like taking notes, eating, brushing our teeth, kind of organizing all of that and orchestrating it all. Since it's crucial in integrating information from all of the senses, damage to it is not good, because then it's all like a bunch of systems are going to be involved, and that's not a good thing, right? Where you can't just treat one thing, it's kind of diffuse. Next is the temporal lobe, which lies on the side of the brain near the temples. So think about temples, and that's the took, and Freud took off his pants. It is important in hearing, processing the auditory information, processing affective tone of nonverbal cues, which means that kind of stuff, or, so our facial things, not necessarily the tones of our voice. And so your parietal lobe is going nuts right now, maybe. So those things, and as well as it processes memory and recognition. There are some differences in the temporal. Oh, no, it wasn't parietal, it was temporal. Sorry, y'all. Some differences in the temporal lobe within each hemisphere. What is that? Lateralization, right? Where could be a little specialized thing on one of the sides. The left temporal lobe is typically more involved in verbal memory and skills. And I think in chapter 1, we talked about Wernicke's area and Broca's area, and I do believe that they are in the left side. I think both of them are, and that's very language-based. And then the right temporal lobe is more involved in nonverbal memory and skills. And so left is more verbal, right is more nonverbal, okay? But it's all memory and skills. It's just how much language is attached to it, which is important when you get into evaluating kiddos, or anybody, not just kiddos. I do kiddos, how their verbal skills are, language skills. I'll shut up now. Okay, so let's go now to the frontal lobe. A lot going on in there. It encompasses 1/3 of the cortex, so it's a lot. It is our processing behemoth. It's what makes us unique from other species, and it makes humans human. It is responsible for executive functions, which, like we talked about, are the higher order cognitive processes such as problem solving, planning, organization, inhibition. And all your book needed you to know is that, or at least for now, right, is that they are subdivided into the premotor. It has a bunch of divisions. And so one slice of divisions is the premotor cortex, motor cortex. It's getting late, y'all. Premotor cortex, the motor cortex, and prefrontal regions. Another way of dividing medial basal area, the dorsal lateral area, and the orbital frontal area. Think about Phineas Gage, who we learned about in our first chapter. If you want to go back and look at him and see where his stuff went and how it changed, and we said that he became more irritable and less friendly, right? That's executive functions and all that sort of stuff. And each region of the frontal lobe is thought to be important for various behavioral, emotional, and cognitive controls. Frontal lobe, like I said about schizophrenia, it's implicated in schizophrenia as well. ADHD, again, this is really a heavy-duty thinking part of the brain. And then one last thing, so in the book, there's a special topic, one of those gray sections, and of course you have to read it. I don't really talk about them in my lectures, but I want y'all to read them. So they talk about how there can be mistakes and stuff like that. And something when I read that I wanted to point out to you guys is when you're being consumers of literature, to understand that not everything gets published. And so some things, usually if they don't have positive, or if they don't find anything, they're not published. But sometimes not finding something is significant. I don't know if y'all heard that recently there was a Nobel Prize winner in chemistry who recently retracted her paper because there had been flaws in the study. And the thing is with that they did have people try to replicate it, because that's the thing that we do with our research basis. Things have to be replicable. You have more than one person has to do it. And so, usually when things do get replicated, it's like, oh, it worked. And so we're having positive findings. But when it doesn't work, a lot of times the journals are like, we're not interested, forget about it. So sometimes it is harder once something gets out there to say that it's not really research based. So be a good consumer and just know that, and be smart because you know that. Okay, y'all, that is it for week 3. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you soon. I'll see you in Blackboard.